on today's topic. The presentation basically quantifies the value of the statistic known as first-level resolution by examining the total cost of support and the cost of lost productivity. Basically, it's a study in a return on investment in your help desk. Ergo the title, Spend a Little, Save a Lot. I'm attempting to show that if you invest money in your service desk, even though the cost of your service desk may be a little higher, the returns are great when you look at the overall cost of support. And then I'll wrap up this webinar by showing you 10 ways to improve FLR. So, the agenda is, first we need to define it. We have to agree on some assumptions. We'll talk about cost per contact versus the total cost of support. We'll do some calculations on lost productivity, realizing that that isn't an exact science. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about the first-level resolution's effect on the customer experience. And then, of course, we'll get to those 10 suggestions. Jumping right in, the definition, as we're going to use it for this webinar, is the percentage of issues coming into a service desk by phone call, email, voicemail, self-service, however a request comes into your service desk, that are resolved by the service desk without being escalated to another group. First-level resolution takes into consideration the calls that are resolved while the customer is on the phone, but that's not always the case. And then, of course, some service desks have like a level 1.5 support, meaning before it's escalated to a second-level support group, like your networking group or programming group, some of your senior service desk analysts might take a crack at it after the customer has hung up, but before the problem ticket has been escalated to that next level for resolution. So that's our definition. Some assumptions. I like to start out with the question, do you know how much per contact is in your organization, how much you calculate the cost of the cost per contact? Sometimes it's a little tricky, but first we'll use some industry averages. The Help Desk Institute dictates that the average cost per contact across all industries, across all types of service desks, whether outsourced, insourced, onshore, offshore, is $16 per contact. The average first-level resolution across that same group is approximately 61%. And for a high percentage of businesses, and we see that the service desk is contacted on average somewhere between 0.8 and 1.2 times per month per FTE. The midpoint is about once per month. I say, for high percentages of businesses, some are a lot more, and obviously some are a lot less. But we do find that about once a month is how many times clients contact our service desks. I say that's both from personal and CAI experience. See a little asterisk point pop up on the bottom? Another thing we see is that a low-cost service desk costs around $7 or less per contact, and onshore best practices service desk costs approximately $12. So we have some numbers to work with as we go through the presentation. As my bio indicated, spent some time in a statistical analysis field. So there's going to be some math. There won't be a test, but there will be some math as we go through some of our examples and try to look at the effect of first-level resolution on the overall cost of support. A few more assumptions. The least expensive way to resolve an issue is through avoidance or self-help. Self-help is quick and readily available. That's a great way to stop problems from getting escalated. But, of course, organizations don't benefit from expensive resources fumbling around with self-help or self-service trying to get issues resolved. I have a whole other webinar that I do on exactly that. It's called Service Desks of the Future, Call Avoidance, Self-Help, and Self-Service, where I really get into that. But I think the one thing we can agree on is if self-help or self-service is not available, the second least expensive way to resolve an issue is at the service desk. They tend to be the lowest cost FTEs in the support chain, and any incident that you can resolve for that cost per contact is probably much better than escalating it to any second or third level support group. We find in the industry that every time you escalate an issue from the service desk to a second or third level support group, it costs 3 to 15 times more to resolve than it does when it's closed on the service desk. So, using the midpoint, there's a little calculation at the bottom. The midpoint between 3 and 15 is 7.81, and if we use the $16 per contact, if it's 7.81 times the cost of the service desk, for illustration purposes, in this particular presentation, we're going to say that an escalated issue costs $125 to resolve. So, now that we have all the assumptions out of the way, let's do a little bit of comparison here. Okay, we're going to take a look at 3 service desks supporting 5,000 clients. We're going to use all industry averages in our first example. 1 call per client per month. Pricing is $16 per contact for a resolution at level 1, and it's $125 for contact for escalation when it's $125 per resolution for escalated contacts. So you can see our 3 service desks here. Service desk 1 is at the industry averages. It's 61% first level resolution, which means 39% get escalated. Our lower cost service desk might resolve 50%, which means 50% are escalated, and our high-performing service desks can hit 75 or above. So let's look at some numbers based on those industry averages above. If we have to respond to 5,000 calls coming into the service desk times the $16, it's $80,000 for the service desk service. The 39% represents 1,950 escalated calls, which cost $125 to resolve. And you see the total cost of support for those 5,000 clients per month would be $323,000. If we look at a less efficient performing service desk, we still have to answer all the calls at $16. The difference here is that half of those 5,000, or 2,500, get escalated at that $125 cost. So you can see that it's almost $70,000 more per month, even though the service desk costs exactly the same. And when we look at our high-performing service desk here, we have the same 5,000 calls, but now only 1,250 are escalated. So you can see the difference between the so-called low-performing service desk and the high-performing service desk has a delta of $160,000 per month. It's pretty amazing when you look at the numbers like this. If we take our example one step further, okay, and we use competitive pricing. I talked about $7 per contact for a low-cost service desk and $12 for a best practices service desk. Let's look at what we have here. Okay, this is the same numbers that we saw on the previous slide. $323,000 with 61% efficiency, we'll call it 61% of issues being resolved at level 1. Now we look at our low-cost service desk. As you can see, the low-cost service desk will turn out to be the most expensive solution. So we have 5,000 calls. We're answering them more cost-effectively at $7 per contact. So the service desk only costs us $35,000 in this example, but if we're escalating 2,500, you can see that there's $312,000 in escalated support for a total cost of support of $347,000. Now, as you might guess, our best practices service desk is doing a heck of a lot better. Even though the service desk costs more than the low cost, you can see the $60,000 versus the $35,000. The fact that they only escalate 1,250 contacts really, really brings down your total cost of support. So, as we can see, the low-cost service desk